Why you don't own a gun. You're going to start to hear similar themes in these segments because the causes crop up within these topics. Let me start by explaining briefly my own experience with guns. I have a faint memory of being at a gun range sometime in my early teens. I don't even recall who I was with, and it was a small group. But we went to the range and I fired a gun, and I recall I was pretty good. That was my experience. I never addressed the idea of guns because I was raised by the word no, so I never bothered to ask. I wasn't attracted to them as most aren't. But why do you need to be attracted? Life is about understanding principles, not being attracted. This, I think, is often the difference between success and failure. Why do guns exist? They exist to protect. From what? From strangers. What strangers? Strangers who wish to impose their will over you for many reasons, mostly resources. They want what you have. This is a fact of life. Ask the American Indian. Yeah, but that doesn't happen anymore. This isn't the Old West. This is true. But on the other hand, the stranger has just changed his stripes. Who are you referring to? Well, there are invaders, though the likelihood of someone finding you is remote, but it's still very possible. Preparedness is always a virtue for those who survive this life. But the stripes have changed, really, because the greatest causal reason for the need to own a firearm? The federal government. Remember, I didn't say state government. It's the federal government. The main difference, and this is quite ironic and yet profound to human behavior, the state government mindset is different only because you have the opportunity to dislodge yourself from their grip. If you don't like the laws of California, you simply pack up and leave, and they no longer have a grip on your life. And there is a competition between the 50 states for your tax dollars and skill set. There is a principle there, which places government in check because government is made up of people, and people have a need for checks and balances. However, in regards to the federal government, there is no way for you to escape them but by leaving the country. However, in regards to the federal government, there is no way for you to escape them but by leaving the country. This is why the federal government is your enemy's single point of entry into your life, to capture you and control you. And what the enemy wants is for you to be powerless. The next question is, what does it mean to be powerful against the federal government? To be honest, this country's power is only run through law, and the law requires lawyers. Yes, it is a scam. It is allowing the wolf to build the hen house, isn't it? The average citizen doesn't have these accesses to lawyers, which is why we have appointed ones as a constitutional right. But still, most of our problems aren't because we are being accused. Most of it has to do with our ability to defend ourselves in the real world. So maybe the real question should be, how would life be different if everyone owned and knew how to fire a gun? Your next thought would be putting guns in the hands of those who wouldn't use it for defense, but for offense. How do you determine this? People are fundamentally going to do things regardless. If you provide an easier means, a new idea in the mind of a delinquent will be born. I agree. So how do you solve this dilemma? You solve it with another firearm. This is the nuke versus nuke solution. Equally destructible results causes peace. Peace through strength. Yes, these are only ideas regarding human behavior. However, if human beings created policy only based on the fact of how the indigents of the world would react, we would never get anything done. Why sell cars if they can kill someone with it? I almost was hit by an ugly person driving in a white mid-sized SUV. Should we take away that SUV? Ask any risk management professional. Life is risk from the moment you are born. It's a ridiculous argument. This, however, does not mean, as a society, we should hand out firearms. Access to a firearm should be the same as for a motorcycle. It should require some level of effort. The indigents don't like effort by nature. Nicholas Cruz didn't have to make any effort. He simply went to the gun store and bought one. That's ridiculous. You shouldn't have to jump through hoops either, but the simple references of your background should suffice if, and I say if, those who are doing the checking are doing it correctly. I say this because I believe there are miscues, purposeful or not, in the process. Slipping through the cracks is an idea more than just a natural phenomenon. There are people who are just as dangerous doing the checking as there are indigents trying to obtain a firearm. You are more than willing to disagree. My statement is based on fundamental cynicism of what the enemy would do, and this is one of them. I believe we have intentional dysfunction in our society to create fear and chaos, i.e., the biggest one, purposely hiring dysfunctional cops. I don't need to go into the motives behind this. You get my point. Maybe instead of firearms, the legal profession should drum up a marketing scam much like the subprime loan scam, where everyone could own a lawyer and we could just duke it out our differences in depositions or in a courtroom. Yes, that would be your only other choice other than living with the Amish or on a deserted island. But even on a deserted island, some asshole could always find it. That was the subtle irony in the film The Beach. People wreck everything. If you have a firearm, they generally go away. Aim it at an indigent and they will flee like a dingo on that deserted island. But the real reason why you don't own a gun is not so much because you think you don't need it. You are simply programmed to be lazy about such topics because, well, they wish to disarm you. There's a quote in The Art of War. You can't truly call yourself peaceful unless you're capable of great violence. If you're not capable of great violence, you're not peaceful. You're harmless. The forefathers gave you the right to own a firearm for a reason, just like the right to a lawyer. You have to decide why you don't own one or at least rent it at the firing range. Seriously, you can rent one for an hour, fire off a .22 LR, the least recoil caliber you could fire. But most importantly, understand the principle behind it. Otherwise, you are just harmless to the federal government that is salivating at your mindset.